Most conversations about Connecticut either oversell it or undersell it. They talk about great schools, proximity to New York, charming towns, safety, and the quality of life. Or they focus on taxes, cost of living, and pressure. But what most conversations miss is the underlying culture. Whether Connecticut works for you has less to do with statistics and more to do with whether you understand the ecosystem you're stepping into. And especially here in Fairfield County, that ecosystem is high achieving, competitive, education driven, financially ambitious, and subtly status aware. Not in an exaggerated way or a loud way, but in a real way. If you don't recognize that before you move here, you can feel caught off guard. And if you do recognize it, you can navigate it intentionally. This isn't about saying Connecticut is good or bad. It's about helping you understand who tends to thrive here long term, who struggles, and why the same town can feel inspiring to one person and overwhelming to another. Because Connecticut rewards certain traits, and it quietly pressures others. Most people move here for logical reasons. The schools, the access to New York, the safety, the long-term stability, the career opportunities, the neighborhoods, and on paper, it makes a lot of sense. But culture isn't something you feel on paper, you feel it daily. And Connecticut's culture, especially in Fairfield County, is built around performance, trajectory, and long-term positioning. Education matters here, a lot. A town matters. Career path matters. Home values matter. This is real awareness of where you stand. And it's not always spoken out loud, but it does exist. There is absolutely a keeping up with the Joneses dynamic in many communities. The Joneses just happen to work in finance, law, medicine, tech, or own businesses. The kids are in competitive sports leagues. They're thinking about college early. They're investing. They're upgrading homes strategically. This isn't chaotic competition, it's structured competition, and that's an important distinction. Connecticut isn't loud about ambition, it's institutional about it. Overachievement is embedded into the environment. That can be motivating, can be neutral, can also feel intense, depending on who you are. The people who tend to thrive here long term are not necessarily the most competitive. They're the ones who understand the competitive nature of the environment without letting it define their identity. They know where they are, they know what they want, and they operate within the ecosystem without constantly reacting to it. Here's what happens if you underestimate Connecticut's culture. You move here for the schools and realize how academically driven the districts are. You move here for the community and realize social circles can be influenced by school systems, town reputation, or professional networks. You move here for opportunity and realize that opportunity comes with performance expectations. You move here for stability and realize stability here is often earned through sustained effort. None of that is inherently negative, but if you expected something more casual, more laid back, or less structured, you may feel pressure you didn't anticipate. Financially, Connecticut requires clarity. Cost of living is real. Housing prices in towns throughout Fairfield County reflect demand, school systems, proximity to New York, and long-term desirability. There can be subtle comparisons around home, renovations, neighborhoods, and lifestyle choices. Again, not always loud, but present. If you constantly measure yourself against others, Connecticut can amplify that tendency. If you've defined your own version of success, Connecticut can feel like a place where that success compounds steadily. That difference matters. Socially, relationships often form around shared stages of life. School systems, sports leagues, community organizations, and professional networks. And it's not exclusionary by design, it's structured. If you're proactive and comfortable initiating connection, you can build strong, lasting community here. And if you're passive and expecting social life to form automatically, you may feel a bit isolated at first. There's also a long game mindset embedded in Connecticut culture. People are thinking 5, 10, 15 years ahead, where their kids will go to school, how property values will hold, how careers will progress, what town positions them well long term. That forward-looking mindset creates stability, but it also creates intensity. For some people, being surrounded by driven, forward-thinking families and professionals is energizing, and for others it can feel like a constant reminder to push harder. Neither reaction is wrong, it just depends on how you relate to ambition. Connecticut works well for people who can operate in high-performance environments without needing to perform for validation. If you are internally grounded, the competitive culture becomes background noise. If you're externally driven by comparison, the culture can feel louder than it is. That's where many struggles begin. I've seen people move to Fairfield County and thrive because they appreciate being surrounded by capable, motivated, successful individuals. They see it as proximity to excellence. I've also seen people feel financial pressure, social pressure, and academic pressure because they didn't expect how achievement-focused the environment would be. Often it's not the town itself that causes stress, it's the mismatch between expectation and reality. Connecticut does not hide what it is. It's structured, future-oriented, and values education, financial responsibility, and upward mobility. The question isn't whether that's good or bad, the question is whether that aligns with how you want to live. If you're highly allergic to competitive environments, Connecticut may feel rigid. If you're deeply driven by status, comparison, it may amplify that in ways that become exhausting. But if you're self-aware, steady, and long-term oriented, Connecticut can be a very stable platform. It allows careers to grow. It allows families to build roots. It allows equity to compound. It allows reputations to solidify, and it does so within a culture that expects effort. Another reality that surprises people is how town identity shapes experience. Different towns carry different reputations. School rankings influence perception. Proximity to transportation matters. Even within Fairfield County, lifestyle varies significantly. Understanding those nuances matters more than most people realize. Connecticut is not one uniform experience, but across towns, the theme of achievement, education, and long-term planning are consistent. If you move here because you want a slower life, but you don't want structure, you may struggle. If you move here because you want opportunity, but you don't want accountability, you may struggle. If you move here because you want your children surrounded by strong education systems and driven peers, you might find it incredibly rewarding. And if you expect the culture to relax you automatically, you may feel surprised by the underlying intensity. There's also an emotional arc many people experience. At first, there is excitement about the schools, neighborhoods, and opportunity. Then comes adjustment. You start noticing how invested people are in their careers, how serious school systems can be, and how intentional people are about financial decisions. Some lean into that and feel aligned. Others feel like they are constantly measuring themselves. Connecticut doesn't create comparison culture from nothing, but if you already struggle with comparison, it can highlight it. That's why clarity going in is so important. This state, and particularly Fairfield County, rewards long-term thinkers who understand the environment and choose how they want to engage with it. You don't have to compete with everyone around you, but you do need to understand that competition exists. You don't have to keep up with the Joneses, but you do need to know that many Joneses are keeping track. Competition in Connecticut doesn't usually look dramatic, doesn't feel like people are openly trying to outdo each other every day. It's more subtle than that. It shows up in conversations about schools, in renovation projects, and in the way people talk about commuting, promotions, internships, test scores, college planning. There is an underlying awareness of trajectory. People are paying attention to where they're headed. And when you live in an environment where many people are thoughtful, strategic, and future-oriented, it naturally raises the baseline. The average here is different. The expectations around education are different. The conversations around career advancements are different. Even the way families plan financially can feel more structured. For some people, that's reassuring. It feels like being surrounded by adults who take life seriously. For others, it can feel like there's always another level to reach. That's where self-awareness becomes so critical. There's a big difference between being inspired by your environment and being defined by it. If you're inspired, you see driven neighbors and think, that motivates me to operate at my best. If you're defined by it, you see the same neighbors and think, I'm behind. Connecticut doesn't decide which of those reactions you have. That comes from you. The environment simply magnifies what is already there. This is especially true when it comes to children and schools. Education is not a casual topic here. Parents are engaged, involved, and planning early. They think about college readiness, extracurricular positioning, and long-term outcomes well before those decisions are urgent. If you value strong educational systems and structured academic environments, that culture can feel aligned. If you prefer a looser, less competitive educational atmosphere, you may feel pressure you didn't expect. Neither approach is wrong. It's about fit. Financially, the same principle applies. Fairfield County has significant wealth, and it also has people working very hard to build wealth. You'll see investment in homes, renovations, landscaping, cars, and experiences. There's an awareness of lifestyle signaling. That doesn't mean everyone participates at the same level, but the awareness exists. If you're clear about your financial goals and boundaries, you can operate here comfortably without overspending or overextending. If you're susceptible to lifestyle comparison, it can quietly influence your decisions. That's why moving here without understanding the psychological environment can create stress. Not because Connecticut is hostile, but because it's structured. It expects engagement, it expects effort, it rewards long-term thinking. For the right person, person, that structure feels stabilizing. For someone who prefers fluidity and spontaneity without long-term planning, it can feel rigid. There's also something important to understand about ambition here. Ambition in Connecticut is rarely flashy. It's disciplined. People build careers steadily. They build equity steadily. They invest in their families steadily. It's not chaotic ambition, it's contained. If you thrive in environments where competence is normal, where people show up prepared, and where standards are relatively high, Connecticut can feel like a strong ecosystem. If you need constant novelty or dramatic change to feel engaged, it may feel repetitive. The culture values consistency over reinvention. That doesn't mean there's no creativity, there's a lot of it. It means reinvention tends to happen strategically rather than impulsively, and that can feel either mature or limiting, depending on your wiring. Ultimately, Connecticut works best for people who understand that high standards are part of the environment and choose how they want to engage with them. You don't have to match your neighbor's house. You don't have to match someone else's career. You don't have to match another family's academic intensity. But you do need to be comfortable living among people who care deeply about those things. If that energizes you, Connecticut can be an incredibly stable, upward moving place to build a life. If that drains you, you may find yourself constantly pushing against the current. Neither outcome is right or wrong, but pretending the current doesn't exist rarely ends well. The most successful moves I've seen into Fairfield County are from people who understood the culture before they arrived. They know what they're stepping into. They weren't surprised by the competitiveness. They weren't intimidated by ambition. They had already defined what success meant to them. When you accept that reality neutrally, you can build your own life here intentionally rather than reactively. That's when Connecticut works best. Now, if you've watched this far, this perspective probably resonates with you. My name is Chris Giolito. I'm a Connecticut realtor based in Fairfield County, and my role isn't just helping people buy or sell homes, it's helping them understand how the environment they're moving into actually functions. Real estate here isn't just about square footage or price per foot. It's about long-term positioning, understanding town dynamics, knowing how school systems influence demand, and aligning your move with the life you're trying to build. A lot of the conversations I have with clients sound exactly like this. We talk about culture, expectations, and what kind of environment fits their personality and goals. If you appreciate this kind of honest, balanced conversation about Connecticut and Fairfield County, I'd encourage you to subscribe. I share content like this regularly so you can make informed, grounded decisions. And if you're actively considering a move, whether into Connecticut, within Fairfield County, or just exploring your options, you're welcome to reach out directly. All of my contact information is below. No pressure, no sales pitch, just a clear conversation about what makes sense for you. So the real question is this: does Connecticut align with how you want to live? Not the reputation, not the rankings, but the culture. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.